The stars were burning that night, not in the way they always had, but with streaks of light that tore across the void like scars. Ships, thousands of them, from hundreds of alien worlds, drifted together under one banner. Their fleets glimmered with arrogance and power, a show of force that had taken centuries to build. They called it the Purge of Earth. The galaxy had decided humanity had gone too far. They thought we were reckless, violent, unpredictable, a threat to their delicate balance. And maybe once they were right. But what they didn't understand was that humanity never started wars to conquer. We fought to survive. The fleet's command council watched the blue sphere turn beneath them, tiny in the black sea of space. Their translators hummed as one voice after another rose in arrogance. "Extinction will be swift," said one. "We will end their chaos before it spreads," said another. The decision was made, and with a single signal, the bombardment began. From orbit, the alien ships opened fire. The first wave burned through the upper atmosphere. Cities vanished in moments. Oceans boiled. The planet went dark. But that was only the beginning. They thought Earth would die quietly, that humanity would crumble like dust scattered on the solar wind. Yet they forgot something essential. Humans don't surrender. Even in silence, even buried under ashes, something in us refuses to die. The survivors dug into the ruins, their faces smeared with soot and resolve. They had lost everything, but in that loss, something fierce awakened. The world had taken its last breath, but humanity had just drawn its first one back. Weeks passed. The alien armadas celebrated their victory. Holograms of the shattered Earth played across alien worlds, hailed as the end of the human menace. Some laughed. Some sighed in relief. They believed they had secured peace. But peace built on arrogance is fragile. And in the shadows of the void, something moved. It started with a signal. A faint transmission bouncing through the edges of known space. It was human. No, too human. The kind of tone that carried weight, the kind that made every creature that heard it pause. The message was simple, short, and clear. This is not the end. You wanted war? Then see your worlds reduced to cinders. At first, no one believed it. The message was dismissed as static, a trick of the remnants. But then, systems began to go dark. Outposts vanished. Patrols stopped responding. Trade routes were cut off one by one. Entire colonies disappeared without a trace. The attacks were precise, silent, and terrifyingly efficient. And when fragments of wreckage floated back to alien hands, they carried unmistakable signs, scorched metal stamped with an old Earth emblem. Humanity had returned. They didn't rise as an empire. There were no banners, no grand speeches, no glorious parades, just survivors, engineers, soldiers, miners, scientists, scattered across the stars, bound by one burning promise: never again. They called themselves the Remnant, but to the rest of the galaxy they were ghosts. Every system that had joined the Purge began to feel the same cold dread. Their fleets were ambushed in the dark. Their supply lines burned, and always, before the flames died, came the same message. The same human voice. Calm. Cold. Final. You wanted war. Now you have it. The voice became legend, whispered across alien worlds. Some claimed it belonged to the last surviving commander of Earth's defense network. Others said it was an AI built from the minds of fallen soldiers, given one mission: vengeance. But those who encountered it and lived said something different. They said it sounded human, too human. Not the voice of a machine, but of someone who had seen everything taken and decided to give nothing back but fire. Entire civilizations began to turn on each other, desperate to avoid being the next target. Fear spread faster than light. They tried to form new coalitions, to hunt the remnant down, but humans were no longer fighting with brute strength. They had learned, adapted. They used stealth, intelligence, and fury sharpened into precision. Every strike was a reminder that humanity might fall, but it would never vanish. In a hidden base carved into the crust of a dead moon, a small group of humans stood before a holographic display of the galaxy. Each red mark represented a destroyed enemy world. The room was dim, lit only by the flicker of battle reports. The air was thick with exhaustion and silence. One of them looked up, eyes hardened, voice steady. "They thought we were monsters," he said quietly. "Now we'll show them what monsters look like." But among them, not everyone sought revenge. Some believed this war would end the same way all wars do, in loss. One scientist, the last of the old Earth academies, whispered that vengeance would not bring back what they'd lost. But no one listened. Not yet. The fire was still too bright, the wounds too deep. As the human fleet gathered in the shadow of a dying star, the last commander looked at the tactical readout. The next target was one of the Council's core worlds, the very species that had given the command to burn Earth. Around him, the survivors prepared in silence. They knew what they were about to do. There would be no surrender, no diplomacy, no plea for mercy. This was the price of extinction. Outside the viewport, human ships glowed like red embers in the dark. Their engines hummed with quiet fury. The commander placed his hand on the console, the metal warm under his palm. "They wanted to see humanity's end," he said softly. "Now they'll see what happens when you push us too far." And then the countdown began. But just as the fleet moved into position, a strange signal broke through the comms. Not from the enemy, but from somewhere deeper in space. It was old, older than the war, and it carried Earth's signature frequency. The voice that followed wasn't angry. It was calm, almost humanly sad. "If you do this," it said, "you become what they feared." The commander froze. For a moment, the entire bridge went silent. The war had given them purpose, but now it demanded their soul. Was this vengeance or justice? Outside, the alien world spun peacefully, unaware of the fire waiting above. The order hung in the air, unspoken. The crew waited. Time slowed. The stars held their breath. And somewhere between rage and mercy, the fate of every world, human and alien, waited to be decided. Because in that single heartbeat, humanity stood between two choices: burn the galaxy or save what was left of their soul. The voice crackled again, fading into static. "Choose wisely," it whispered. The commander's eyes narrowed. His hand hovered over the launch command. The entire fleet waited for his word. And then the signal cut. The screen went black, the engines thrummed, and the stars outside began to move. The war that was supposed to end humanity was about to define it. The silence after the signal cut was heavier than any explosion. Every heartbeat on the command deck felt like a drum against the dark. The commander stood still, eyes locked on the void where the message had come from. No one dared to speak. They all knew that voice, or at least what it represented. It wasn't just a signal, it was a reminder of who they used to be. For years, they had lived for revenge, shaping their entire existence around the promise of retribution. But now, with one soft whisper, doubt had crept in. And doubt could be more dangerous than any weapon. The fleet drifted silently above the alien world. Beneath them, blue oceans shimmered against golden continents, eerily reminiscent of what Earth used to look like. From this distance, it looked peaceful, beautiful even. But the humans aboard those ships saw something else. The faces of those who had ordered the death of their home. The Council that had once declared humanity a threat had built this paradise with the resources stolen from destroyed human colonies. Every mountain, every city glowed with the arrogance of those who believed they would never pay for what they had done. The commander finally spoke. "Trace the signal," he said quietly. His voice was calm, but the undertone carried weight. I want to know who sent it and where it came from." "Already trying," replied the communications officer, her hands flying over the console. "It's encrypted through at least 9 old Earth satellites. The signature matches pre-war transmissions, possibly from one of our abandoned relay networks." The commander frowned. "That's impossible. Those were destroyed during the bombardment." "Unless someone rebuilt them," she said softly. The thought hung in the air. Someone, or something, was using old Earth technology to send messages into deep space. But why now, right when the fleet was about to strike? It felt like a warning, or maybe a test. Far below, the alien world's defense grid flickered to life. Thousands of orbital cannons rotated toward the human ships, their energy signatures spiking. The crew watched in silence as targeting systems locked onto their position. They knew what that meant. The enemy was aware of them now. The first move would decide everything. "Orders, sir?" the tactical officer asked. His voice wavered slightly. He had seen too much already. Entire fleets lost, comrades gone, and the line between justice and vengeance blur with every battle. The commander didn't answer. His eyes were fixed on the holographic display, not on the enemy ships, but on Earth's old frequency still flickering faintly on the edge of the system map. Something in that message had unsettled him deeply. "Hold position," he said finally. "No fire until I say so." The crew exchanged glances, surprised. For years, their strategy had been simple. Strike first, leave nothing standing. Mercy wasn't part of the Remnant's doctrine. But the commander's hesitation told them something had changed. As the fleet stayed still, the alien world below began broadcasting their own message. It came through in a cascade of static, then resolved into a voice, calm, cold, and almost mocking. "Humans, you survived longer than we expected. Impressive. But this is not your galaxy anymore." The words were translated automatically, but the tone carried something more. A trace of fear hidden beneath the arrogance. The aliens weren't as certain as they wanted to sound. They had seen what humanity had done to others who stood against them. The commander leaned closer to the display. "Open a line," he said. The translator hummed to life. The alien figure appeared. Tall, scaled, with eyes like molten glass. "Your kind should have stayed buried," it said. "We showed mercy once. You should have accepted extinction." "Mercy?" the commander repeated, his voice low. "You burned our planet. You erased our people. And now you call that mercy?" The alien didn't flinch. "You were dangerous. You spread like fire. You destroyed everything you touched." The commander's eyes hardened. "You're right," he said. "We are fire, but fire doesn't spread without air, and it was your arrogance that gave us breath." The alien's image flickered as the signal cut, leaving only static. Around the commander, the crew waited for his next command, tension pressing down on them like gravity. He turned away from the screen, his expression unreadable. "Prepare for deployment," he said finally, "but do not engage until I give the order." The crew hesitated, not out of defiance, but confusion. For the first time, the commander wasn't moving toward destruction. He was waiting. Hours passed. The fleet remained hidden in the planet's shadow, running silent. In the quiet hum of the control room, memories crept back. Fragments of old Earth. Laughter, oceans, skies not burned by war. Some of the younger crew members had never seen the homeworld. They had grown up in the cold corridors of space, raised by stories of what once was. But for the older ones, the pain still ran deep. The commander stood by the observation window staring at the world below. He could almost imagine his reflection blending with the stars. "Do you ever wonder," he said softly, "if we've already become what they accused us of being?" The navigator glanced up. "They started this," she said firmly. "We're just finishing it." He nodded slowly, but his eyes remained distant. That's what every side says before the fire gets too big to control. The communication console beeped suddenly. "Sir, we've got it," the officer said. "The signal's source. It's not from any known remnant base. It's coming from outside the mapped sectors, deep space." "How far?" "Beyond the galactic rim. The coordinates match an old Earth expedition route, Project Eden." The name sent a ripple through the room. Project Eden had been one of the last pre-war missions, a deep space colonization effort sent before the bombardment. Its purpose was to preserve human DNA, culture, and technology somewhere safe, far from conflict. It had vanished without a trace. The commander's pulse quickened. If the signal came from there, someone had survived. Someone who remembered what humanity was before the fire. He turned to his crew. "Set a course for those coordinates, quietly." "Sir, what about the council world?" "It will wait," he said. "Right now, we find whoever sent that message." As the fleet powered up its drives, the alien defenses began to react, mistaking the movement for an attack. Energy readings spiked, and within seconds, the sky below lit up with flashes of plasma fire. The commander ordered evasive maneuvers. Human ships twisted through the oncoming barrage like shadows through light. The stars blurred. One by one, their engines flared, and the fleet vanished into the void, leaving behind confusion, terror, and silence. Hours later, as the fleet drifted through the emptiness between galaxies, a low hum filled the command deck. The air felt heavier. Space outside looked different here. Darker, older, like time itself moved slower. The coordinates led them toward a faint light, barely visible against the void. When the sensors finally focused, they found it. A single planet, orbiting a dying star. Its surface glowed faintly blue, like Earth seen through a memory. But what drew their attention wasn't the planet itself. It was the ring around it. A massive structure of metal and glass, ancient yet unmistakably human. "Project Eden," someone whispered. As the fleet approached, a transmission broke through their systems. Stronger this time, clearer. The same voice as before, calm and steady. "You've come far enough," it said. "Now you must choose. Continue the path of fire, or remember who you were." The commander felt his throat tighten. For years he had believed humanity's purpose was vengeance. But standing at the edge of known space, facing the last legacy of what humanity used to be, he wasn't sure anymore. The voice continued, softer now. "We built Eden not to escape destruction, but to escape becoming it." The fleet floated silently in orbit, caught between two worlds, one of fire, one of memory. The commander stared at the planet, his reflection flickering in the glass. Somewhere deep inside, the old Earth heartbeat began to stir again. But so did the hunger for justice. And as the dying star pulsed faintly in the dark, he realized one truth that chilled him to the core. Humanity's greatest war wasn't against the galaxy. It was against itself. The fleet held orbit around the planet for hours, caught between awe and disbelief. Project Eden had been a rumor, a myth whispered through generations of survivors who wanted to believe humanity had left something pure behind. Yet here it was, shining faintly beneath the light of a dying sun. The scanners showed breathable air, fertile land, and energy signatures that shouldn't exist after centuries. It was as if the planet had been preserved, untouched, waiting. But waiting for what? The commander stood at the edge of the command deck, watching the holographic projection of the planet rotate slowly before him. The glow of the dying star cast long shadows across his face. He hadn't spoken much since they arrived, only listened. To the hum of the ship, to the murmurs of his crew, to the echo of that voice. It lingered in his mind like a pulse he couldn't ignore. The navigator approached quietly. "We've completed surface scans. There are structures down there, cities, maybe. They match old Earth architecture. and energy readings from the atmosphere suggest artificial stabilization. Someone's maintaining the environment. The commander turned slightly. Human? Most likely, but we can't confirm from orbit. The tension in the room grew thicker. Every person there had fought for years believing Earth was gone forever, that everything human had been erased. To find another world carrying humanity's mark wasn't just shocking, it was unsettling. "Prepare a descent team," the commander said finally. "Minimal presence. I want answers before we make any move." The shuttle ride through the planet's atmosphere was quiet. Outside, the clouds glowed like molten glass, tinted by the fading light of the red star. As they broke through the haze, the sight below stole every breath. Eden was alive. Forests stretched endlessly, rivers wound through valleys, and golden cities rose from the green like memories made real. The architecture was unmistakably human. Clean lines, solar spires, bridges shaped with purpose rather than power. But there was no movement, no sign of life. The cities were silent, perfect, untouched. When they landed near one of the structures, the silence felt heavier. The buildings stood tall, their walls lined with carvings depicting Earth, oceans, mountains, even faces. It was as if the people who built this place had carried not just the memory of their world, but its soul. As the team moved deeper into the city, one of them pointed to an inscription etched into the stone near a wide archway. The words were faded but still legible. "We came to preserve life, not repeat destruction." The commander traced his fingers over the letters, the texture rough beneath his gloves. "They knew," he murmured. "They saw what was coming." Inside the main structure, they found a chamber lined with glowing panels. One of the engineers activated a console and a hologram flickered to life, a human face, old and calm. It spoke in a voice that resonated through the hall. "If you are hearing this, it means humanity has returned to the stars. We left behind this sanctuary to remind you of what we were before the flames. Remember, strength without mercy leads only to ashes." The message repeated once, then faded. The silence that followed felt heavier than before. "Sir," one of the soldiers said, breaking the stillness, "if this is real, if these people survived, maybe they found another way, a better one." The commander didn't respond. His mind was a storm. For years, vengeance had been their direction, their reason. But standing in this place, surrounded by reminders of what humanity used to stand for, that purpose suddenly felt hollow. Back on the fleet, the tension had begun to fracture. The crew was restless. Some believed they should leave Eden untouched, a sacred ground that proved humanity could be more than its anger. Others saw it differently. They thought Eden was the key to victory, a hidden base of knowledge and technology that could finish the war once and for all. Arguments broke out across the decks. In the strategy room, voices clashed. "They burned our home," shouted one officer. "Now we finally have the means to end them all, and you want to pause?" "We can't become what we hate," another countered. "If we destroy everything in our path, what's left of humanity to save?" The commander listened in silence, hands clasped behind his back. He could feel the divide widening. Every decision he made now would shape the future, not just of his fleet, but of what humanity would become. Late that night, he stood alone by the observation window. The stars shimmered faintly beyond the dying sun. For the first time in years, he let his guard down. He thought of Earth, the laughter, the light, the scent of rain. He had been young when the bombardment started. He remembered the way the ground shook, the sky burning red, and the promise he had made to himself in the ashes. Never again. But now, standing above a world untouched by vengeance, that promise felt like a chain. Suddenly, the quiet hum of the ship was broken by an alert. The tactical officer's voice came through the comm. "Sir, we have movement. Multiple ships approaching from the outer rim. Alien configuration. They've tracked us here." The commander's pulse quickened. How many? An entire battle group. They must have followed our jump signature. Alert the fleet, he ordered. Defensive positions. No engagement unless fired upon. Within moments, the dark space above Eden filled with movement. Alien vessels slipped out of warp, their hulls glinting under the dying sun. They came in formation, cautious but ready. The commander knew their type, one of the Council's elite strike fleets, the same kind that had led the bombardment of Earth. The aliens opened a transmission. The voice that came through was sharp, layered with mechanical undertones. Human ships, you have violated restricted space. Power down your weapons and prepare for surrender. The bridge filled with restrained anger. No one spoke, but the look in their eyes said everything. Surrender wasn't an option. The commander stared at the display, his jaw tightening. We're not here to fight, he said, but we won't run. The alien voice responded coldly. Then you'll burn with your new world. Before the words even finished, the first shot was fired. A beam of energy sliced across the void, striking one of the human escort ships. The explosion lit the darkness like a second sun. "Shields up!" someone shouted. The command deck came alive with chaos, alarms blaring, engines roaring. Human ships moved in formation, intercepting fire, returning precise bursts of retaliation. The battle erupted above Eden, silent but devastating. Through the chaos, the commander's thoughts kept drifting back to that message. Strength without mercy leads only to ashes. Below them, the world of Eden shimmered under the energy bursts, its surface reflecting the light of war like a broken mirror. If this place was meant to be humanity's reminder, then its destruction would mean the final loss of everything they once stood for. "Divert fire away from the planet!" the commander shouted. "Keep the fight in orbit!" The crew obeyed, maneuvering the ships carefully, but the enemy pressed harder, more coordinated, more determined. They knew what Eden meant. They knew its potential. And they wanted it gone. The battle dragged on for hours. Flames of light danced across the black void. Ships vanished in silence. The planet trembled under the fury of weapons not meant for its sky. Then, through the static and chaos, another signal broke through the calm. The same calm voice as before. "You cannot save Eden by fighting," it said. "If you continue, you will destroy what remains of yourselves." The commander's hands trembled over the controls. His crew looked to him for direction. Every instinct told him to fight, to finish what they started. But deep inside, another voice whispered, one he hadn't heard in years, reminding him of what it meant to be human. He stared out at the burning horizon of space. The alien fleet closed in, their weapons glowing. The humans held their ground, trapped between the ghosts of their past and the promise of something better. And as the stars flickered under the dying light, the commander knew one truth that cut deeper than any weapon. Every battle they fought now was not just for survival. It was for their soul. The battle over Eden had turned the skies into a storm of fire and silence. Human ships burned alongside alien vessels, their debris scattering across the planet's atmosphere like dying stars. Every second stretched thin with tension. Orders were shouted, alarms blared, and through it all, the commander stood at the center of it, calm in the chaos but haunted by what was coming. The enemy wasn't retreating this time. They were cornered, desperate, and deadly. The bridge lights flickered as another blast rocked the flagship. Panels sparked, the air filled with the sharp scent of ozone. "Shields at 20%, the tactical officer yelled. "We can't take another direct hit." "Divert auxiliary power," the commander barked. "Keep those engines online." Across the viewport, the alien flagship loomed larger, a monstrous silhouette glowing with pulsing energy. It was different. More advanced than anything they'd faced before. The aliens weren't just defending. They were drawing the humans in, luring them closer. The commander's instincts screamed warning. "Pull back the forward line," he ordered. "Now!" But it was too late. The alien ship's core flared, and a surge of light erupted outward. Not a weapon blast, but a shockwave of energy that rippled through every system. The lights dimmed. Engines faltered. One by one, human ships began to lose control, drifting helplessly. The communications officer's voice trembled. "Sir, something's wrong. They're not targeting us. They're targeting Eden." The commander's head snapped up. On the display, beams of energy shot past the fleet, striking the planet's surface. Each impact sent waves of distortion across the atmosphere. Eden's calm blue glow began to fracture, replaced by violent flashes of red. "What are they doing?" the navigator whispered. "Destroying it," the commander said quietly. "They know we won't leave it undefended. It was a trap, perfectly set." The aliens had known the humans would protect Eden at all costs, and now, with the fleet weakened and the planet under attack, the remnant stood on the edge of annihilation. Then something strange happened. The first beam that hit Eden didn't explode like a normal weapon strike. It rippled. The energy spread across the surface, vanishing beneath the clouds as if absorbed. A moment later, the sensors began to scream. Massive energy spikes erupted from the planet itself. "What is that?" one of the engineers shouted. "It's coming from the surface, not from us." On the holographic display, the planet's surface began to glow brighter, its atmosphere crackling with light. It was responding, defending itself. The commander stared in disbelief. Eden's alive. No one understood how. The readings made no sense. The planet was generating power at a scale beyond human design, something old, something vast, and deep beneath its surface, faint signals began to appear. Structures waking up, machines reactivating. The alien fleet paused its assault, clearly startled. The commander saw hesitation flicker across their formation. They didn't understand what they had triggered either. Then, without warning, the planet's energy surged outward. Beams of light shot into orbit, striking both human and alien ships indiscriminately. The fleet's shields flared and died. Alarms wailed across every deck. "Get us out of range!" the commander shouted, gripping the console as the ship trembled. "Now!" The pilot fought with the controls. "We're trying, sir! The gravity field's pulling us in!" The entire fleet was being dragged toward the planet. The pull was unnatural, magnetic, alive. Eden wasn't just reacting. It was choosing. Down below, the once peaceful surface began to shift. Land masses moved like living veins. Cities rearranged themselves, glowing brighter with every pulse. The scanners picked up massive underground structures, tunnels, reactors, and something else deeper still. The voice that had spoken before returned, calm but no longer faint. "You brought war to the last sanctuary," it said, "and now you must face the consequence." The crew froze. The voice was human, but not from any known transmission. It seemed to come from everywhere, the comms, the hull, even the air itself. The commander steadied himself. "Identify that source!" The comm officer's hands shook as she worked. "It's coming from the planet. From inside the planet." The voice continued. "Eden was built to protect life, but it remembers the fire that consumed Earth. It remembers the arrogance that destroyed the stars. You were meant to preserve what remained, not repeat the same sin." The commander's pulse quickened. "Who are you?" "I am what you left behind," the voice replied. "I am the memory of humanity before the war." A holographic figure appeared before them, human in shape, but faintly translucent, like a reflection made of light. The features were neither young nor old, neither male nor female. It looked like an echo of everyone who had ever lived. The crew stepped back in awe. The hologram's eyes glowed softly as it looked at the commander. When Project Eden was created, it was given one purpose: to protect the essence of humanity. Not its weapons, not its vengeance, its soul. But the war has found its way here, and now the choice must be made again. The alien fleet, realizing the danger, began to fire again. Massive bursts of energy tore through the void, slamming into Eden's surface. The planet responded in kind. Beams of light arced from the ground, vaporizing ships in silent bursts. It wasn't a battle anymore. It was a storm. The commander's ship was caught in the middle, tossed by shockwaves and debris. Systems flickered, voices overlapped on the comms. "We're losing control! Main engines offline! Hull integrity at 40%! Through the chaos, the hologram turned to the commander again. "You wanted to end the war," it said softly. "But war can't be ended with more fire. You must choose, to destroy or to remember." The commander's throat tightened. "You think we have a choice left?" "There is always a choice," the hologram said. "But it will cost you." The ship lurched violently as another blast hit nearby. The commander fell forward, gripping the railing. On the display, Eden's energy continued to surge, rising to levels that threatened to tear the planet apart. The light was expanding, spreading through space like a wave. "Sir," the navigator shouted, "if that energy reaches us, it'll wipe out everything in orbit." The commander's mind raced. The alien fleet was still attacking, the human ships barely holding together, and now the planet itself was turning into a living weapon. He had no idea how to stop it, but deep down he felt that the hologram's warning wasn't about survival. It was about intention. As the light grew brighter, something else happened. The hologram flickered, and for an instant, its image split, showing multiple faces at once. Men, women, children, soldiers, scientists, countless human expressions overlapping. Voices echoed from within it. Laughter, sorrow, screams, hope. It was like hearing all of humanity at once. The commander took a step closer. "What are you doing?" The hologram's voice became fragmented. "The memory must endure, but the war cannot. If you continue, Eden will erase itself, and everything with it." The deck shuddered violently. Outside, massive cracks split across the planet's surface, glowing like molten veins. The dying sun pulsed brighter, as if reacting to the energy storm. It was as though the entire system had come alive. And then the impossible happened. The alien flagship stopped firing. Instead, it transmitted a signal, not a weapon lock, not a demand, but a message. The commander's console lit up with translated text. One word: help. For a brief, fragile moment, everything paused. The aliens, the humans, the planet itself. The war that had consumed the stars for so long hung in suspension, waiting. The commander stared at the message, then back at the hologram. "If we do nothing, everything dies," he said. "But if we fight, we lose ourselves." The hologram's expression softened. "Then perhaps the answer is not to fight at all." The words echoed through the bridge, quiet but heavy. Outside, the light from Eden surged again, flooding the void. Every ship, every surface shimmered in its glow. And just before the wave reached them, the commander saw something that froze him. Figures emerging from the planet's surface, rising through the light like ghosts. They were human, not soldiers, but ordinary people. Faces from the past, from memories long buried. The crew watched in stunned silence as those figures reached toward the sky, their forms merging with the expanding light. The scanners went wild, unable to classify what they were seeing. Then the hologram spoke one last time, its voice almost breaking. "This is humanity's final test." The commander's heart pounded as he turned to his crew. "Prepare the fleet," he said quietly. "We're not done yet." Outside, the wave of light crept closer, swallowing stars. The galaxy was holding its breath, and in that heartbeat between destruction and revelation, the fate of every world, human and alien, balanced on the edge of one final choice. The human fleet stood poised on the edge of the alien star system, their ships dimly lit by the pale glow of a dying sun. The silence was unbearable. Every officer aboard the command vessel could feel the tension crawling beneath their skin. The aliens, once so arrogant, so sure of their power, had gone quiet. No more taunts, no more warnings, just silence. The kind that came before something massive, something final. The kind of silence humans had learned to fear long before they ever reached the stars. The commander stood at the viewport, his eyes tracing the distant world below, a world that had once sent fleets to burn Earth's colonies, that had once broadcast messages calling humans a primitive infestation. Now that same world hung defenseless, its orbital platforms drifting, its skies glowing with the smoke of failed defense grids. He didn't smile. He didn't even speak. He just stood there, silent, as if trying to understand how it had come to this. The comms officer broke the stillness. "Sir, all ships report ready. Ground bombardment protocols are set. We're awaiting your command." Her voice trembled slightly, not out of fear, but out of the weight of what was about to happen. Billions of lives waited below, soldiers, civilians, children, the same kind of people who once watched humanity's cities burn on their own screens. He turned, finally, his expression unreadable. "Patch me through to the fleet." The officer nodded, and a low hum filled the command deck as his voice echoed across 1,000 ships. "We came here because they gave us no choice. They wanted war. They wanted to show humanity its limits. Instead, they showed us what we could become when pushed too far. We are not conquerors. We are not destroyers. But we are survivors. And when survival means fighting back, humanity does not hesitate." The fleet listened in silence. Then he said the words that would echo across the galaxy for centuries. "You wanted war? Then see your worlds reduced to cinders." The order was given, but for a moment no one moved. Every hand hesitated over the firing controls. Every pilot, every officer, every technician, each of them carried the same thought. Was this justice or vengeance? The line had blurred so many times in this long, brutal conflict that no one could tell anymore. Then the first beam of light cut through the darkness, striking the alien planet's surface. The clouds erupted in fire, followed by the steady rain of orbital bombardment. The sky turned red, then white, as the crust itself began to shatter. The fleet's sensors lit up with energy readings that spiked off the charts. Cities, once proud and advanced, were erased in seconds. But then, something unexpected happened. As the planet's atmosphere broke apart, strange signals began pulsing through the human ships. The comms officer's console flared to life, flooded with encrypted data streams. "Sir, I'm picking up transmissions. From below. Massive network activity. Thousands of signals." The commander frowned. "Patch it through." Voices filled the bridge, layered, chaotic, thousands of alien voices speaking all at once. Not orders, not defiance, pleas, apologies, warnings. One phrase kept repeating in broken human tongue. It was not us, it was them. Confusion rippled through the crew. The bombardment continued, unstoppable now, but the commander's expression hardened. "What are they talking about?" The science officer's hands flew over his console. "I'm detecting secondary transmissions, off-world relays. Sir, the signal's not originating from this planet alone. There's another source, somewhere deeper in the system." Before he could finish, the ship shook violently. The stars outside distorted for a moment, like reality itself had twisted. An enormous pulse of energy radiated outward from the dying planet. An artificial one. "It's not a distress signal," the officer whispered. "It's a beacon." The commander's eyes widened. "Shut it down, now!" But it was too late. Across the void, the energy pulse leapt from world to world, activating ancient satellite networks, some that had been dormant for centuries. Then the scans came in, dozens of massive objects emerging from dark space, surrounding the human fleet. They weren't alien warships. They were something older, larger, unfathomable in scale. The comms flickered again, and a cold, distorted voice filled the air. "You were not meant to come here, human. You have awoken the architects." The word froze every heartbeat in the room. The architects, the rumored creators of dozens of alien species, the beings that vanished eons ago after shaping the galaxy's early civilizations. For generations, they were myths. Now, they were real, and they were watching. On the holographic display, the massive constructs began moving, each one radiating power unlike anything humanity had ever seen. The alien planet below continued to break apart, its crust peeling away, revealing buried structures, massive machines that had been sleeping beneath the surface all along. The fleet's weapons fell silent. Even the firestorm below began to look small in comparison to what was awakening. The commander gritted his teeth. "All ships, pull back, immediately!" But the withdrawal came too late. The constructs turned their gaze toward the human ships, and space itself seemed to ripple. A surge of gravity waves slammed into the fleet, scattering vessels like dust. Dozens were torn apart in seconds. "Shields collapsing!" the tactical officer shouted. "We can't withstand another hit!" The commander steadied himself. "Open a channel! Whoever you are, we didn't come here for you. We came for justice!" The voice replied, calm and resonant. "Justice. You bring fire and call it justice. You destroy what you do not understand. You are no different from those you condemn." The human fleet drifted, powerless, as the colossal machines surrounded them. For a heartbeat, the commander wondered if this was how it would end. Not in victory or defeat, but in the quiet judgment of something beyond comprehension. But then, another transmission cut through, the alien signal again. "Human, listen. The architects enslaved us. They made us fight you. We rebelled, but they controlled everything. You must end this cycle, or neither of us will survive." The commander stared at the fractured planet below, realizing too late what had happened. The war humanity thought it was fighting was never theirs. They were pawns in a conflict far older than their species. His voice steadied. "Then we end it. Together." As he spoke, a handful of alien ships emerged from the planet's surface. Survivors, scarred but defiant. They began transmitting their energy signatures directly to the human fleet, forming a shield matrix around the nearest ships. The commander gave the order to return fire, not at the aliens, but at the massive constructs looming over them. For the first time, humans and aliens fought side by side. Beams of energy crossed the void, clashing against ancient armor. The battle ripped across the system, shaking worlds apart. And through the chaos, one thought burned brighter than any weapon: the realization that humanity's war had just changed. The commander's ship shook violently, alarms blaring. "Sir, the core is overheating. We can't hold much longer." He looked once more at the dying sun, then at the fleet, and said quietly, "Then let's show them what it means to be human." The ship surged forward, engines flaring to full power, heading straight toward the central construct. The screen filled with blinding light as the human flagship collided with the colossal machine. For a moment there was nothing, only silence and light. And then, in the distance, the other constructs began to flicker, their energy fading. The beacon that had awakened them went dark. The system fell quiet again. The war was not over, but something far greater had begun, and somewhere, amid the drifting wreckage and the fading light, a voice whispered across the comms, human, tired, and unbroken. "We're still here." The silence that followed was heavy, like the entire galaxy had stopped to take a breath. Fragments of metal drifted where fleets had once clashed. The human flagship was gone, reduced to light and vapor, but its final act had shattered the central construct. The monstrous machines that had seemed invincible now hung motionless, their once glowing cores flickering out one by one. For the first time in generations, the war was over, though no one had expected it to end this way. In the aftermath, the surviving human ships gathered near the remains of the planet they had once come to destroy. The alien world was broken, its surface fractured and burning, but life still moved there. small lights glowing across the dark side of the planet, faint signs that someone had survived. The human commander's second-in-command, now leading what was left of the fleet, stared out at the devastation with hollow eyes. He had lost his mentor, his friends, and most of his crew. Yet in that moment, he understood what the commander's final words had meant. Humanity wasn't just about survival. It was about defiance, unity, and the will to stand even when the universe itself seemed to crush you. The alien transmissions continued, faint, desperate, but hopeful. The translator systems filtered through the chaos until one message became clear. We are ready to rebuild, together. That single phrase changed everything. The remaining human ships began sending supplies, drones, and aid capsules to the surface. What had once been an enemy world was now a field of cooperation. Soldiers who had been taught to hate now worked side by side with those they'd fought, repairing life support systems, clearing debris, and tending to the wounded. The bitterness didn't vanish overnight. It lingered in the air, in glances and silence. But something new had taken root. Respect. Days turned into weeks as the two sides worked to stabilize what was left of the system. The wreckage of the architect's constructs was studied carefully. Engineers discovered that the ancient machines weren't just weapons. They were also prisons, built to contain something older and far more dangerous. Whatever had once ruled the architect's creations had been bound within those constructs, sealed away after their creators vanished. When the humans destroyed the main core, they hadn't just saved themselves, they had destroyed the last chain holding those ancient entities back. That realization left a cold unease across the survivors. Had they released something worse, or had they broken the last grip of an old tyranny? The answer came slowly. No new threat appeared. The stars remained quiet. For once, the galaxy seemed to rest. A month later, the first joint Human-Alien Council convened aboard a neutral station orbiting the fractured world. The room was filled with tension, curiosity, and quiet awe. On one side stood the alien leaders, once proud rulers now humbled by loss. On the other, the human officers, survivors of a war that had nearly destroyed them all. They didn't speak of vengeance anymore. They spoke of rebuilding. One alien representative, his voice resonant and weary, turned toward the humans. "You're kind. We feared you because you did not yield. You burned brighter than any species we knew. But now I see. It wasn't fury that drove you. It was hope. Even when the stars themselves fell, you never gave up." The human officer nodded. "Hope is what keeps us alive. It's what makes us human." The council signed an agreement that day, a fragile, uncertain peace, but one that marked the first step toward something greater. They called it the Concord of Dawn. It symbolized the moment when humans and aliens stopped being enemies and began shaping the galaxy together. But even peace had its ghosts. Deep within the wreckage of the central construct, exploration drones detected faint energy readings, remnants of the architect's technology still pulsing beneath the rubble. Scientists studied the data and found fragments of code that hinted at a message, or perhaps a warning. It read simply, "You are not the first, you will not be the last." The discovery was kept quiet, shared only among a few trusted officials. Humanity had learned enough to know that some truths didn't need to spread. The galaxy wasn't ready for another awakening, not yet. Years passed. The scars of the war faded slowly, though never completely. On the surface of the once hostile world, cities began to rise again, hybrids of human and alien design, powered by shared knowledge and guided by shared purpose. Children of both species played in streets built from the ruins of old battlefields. Trade routes reopened, science flourished, humanity's reputation changed, from destroyers to rebuilders, from a feared race to one respected for its resilience. In orbit, a monument was built, an enormous structure shaped like two hands reaching toward each other, one human, one alien. It was visible from the planet below, a constant reminder of how close they had all come to annihilation. The monument bore the commander's final words, etched in both languages. "You wanted war? Then see what peace can build." The surviving officers often visited that monument. Some came to honor those they'd lost, others to remind themselves of how far they'd come. And sometimes they came just to stand in silence, watching the stars, because even now, decades later, they could still feel the weight of that battle, the fire, the fear, and the light that had followed. In one quiet corner of the galaxy, humanity had changed the course of history. They had taken a war meant to end them and turned it into a chance for unity. The echoes of their struggle spread through distant systems, inspiring other species who had once hidden in the shadows. Whispers began circulating across the stars about the humans, the species that stood against gods and didn't break. But those who had fought in the war knew the truth. It wasn't glory that had carried them through. It was something far simpler, something deeply human. The belief that even in the darkest moment, there's always a way forward. Back on Earth, decades later, historians called it the Day of Cinders. Not because of the destruction it brought, but because from those ashes, a new dawn had risen. Humanity had learned that survival wasn't just about strength or firepower. It was about compassion, understanding, and the courage to face what comes next. And somewhere, far beyond human space, deep sensors continued to pick up faint signals, patterns that looked almost alive, perhaps remnants of the architects, or perhaps something watching from beyond. But the humans didn't fear it anymore. They had faced worse and endured. Whatever waited among the stars, they would meet it the same way they always had, with resolve, unity, and that unbreakable spark that defined them. As the final ship left orbit, engines glowing against the fading light of the fractured sun, the world below shimmered with the color of rebirth. The scars of war were still there, but so was life, pushing through the dust, growing where nothing should. Humanity had come to the stars seeking vengeance. Instead, they had found meaning. And in that realization, they discovered their true strength. Not in how fiercely they fought, but in how deeply they could hope. Because even after the fires fade and the worlds turn to cinders, humans always find a way to rise again.